second round of funny car competition, and this should be interesting. Bruce Larson, the current points leader, the man who after about 30 years in this sport is finally finding himself in the spotlight.
2 wins this year for Bruce Larson, going against the man who has absolutely owned this racetrack over the years, Don Prud'homme. 7 of his 37 career victories have come here in Quebec.
But Larson has the lane choice, and where do we find him? One guess. In the near lane. Don Prud'homme will be over in the far lane, which some say is a little slick, some say is a little bumpy. It has been problems. The Snake, well, if anybody knows this racetrack, as you just said, Gary, it's the man in that Pontiac from Granada Hills, California. And he has got one of the best of the young crew chiefs. Mike KLOEBER twisting the wrenches on the Snake's car along with the rest of the crew. It's really a team effort there. For Bruce Larson, well, again, it's a team effort. Tim Richards, who oversees the Armada Top Fuel car, kind of guides this machine with the help of Maynard Yanks, the former circle track racer who is having a great time going in a straight line. They hold the official NHRA national record at 5.25 seconds.
Larson with a pair of victories this year. He kicked off the season at the Winter Nationals Pomona with a victory, and most recently in the Spring Nationals at Columbus had a win to help cement that #1 point standing. Prud'homme is the defending champion here at Saint-Air, but he's looking for his first victory this season.
You know, I said that Larson, and there's a problem with the Larson car. The body is up. Maynard Yanks, the crew chief, going in there. What do you think, Don?
Well, Buster Couch is taking a look, so that means it's a safety problem, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like what he's seen. Larson has been shut off by Buster Couch.
The report from the starting line, a loose oil line, not a broken line, just not one thoroughly tight. Don Prud'homme has a bye run, and that has got to add insult to injury when Bruce Larson sees the Snake go up in smoke. He gave this one away.
And does that open the door for Kenny Bernstein as the points leader? Larson is now on the sidelines.
And the emotion that has to be going on behind that helmet.
Alive. Our next pair has Scott Coletta going against Art Hendy. We're looking at Coletta, and he has selected the outside lane, even though Scott has lane choice. That's a switch now, Don Garlett.
Well, his crew chief, which is his dad, Connie Coletta, went out and looked at the lane. You can see the spots out on the track where they cleaned up the spill that Larson had put down, and he has elected to put Scott in the far lane for fear of spinning the tires at that particular point in the racetrack.
Lots of strategy involved in this quarter mile, 5 seconds for it. A lot to think about. Here in the near lane, that is Art Hendy, a former alcohol racer, in fact, running his old alcohol car on nitromethane, along with his crew chief, partner, and best friend, Chuck WORSHAM. Now, earlier today, it was Art Hendy up against Ed McCullough. McCullough from Southern California with the Oldsmobile-bodied car, crewed by an expatriate Canadian, Bernie FEDDERLY. Now, here's how it's set up earlier in round #1 of Funny Car. McCullough in the near lane was hooked up so hard the front wheels were in the air. You can clearly see daylight underneath. But FDA's McCullough was not about to lift. Not with Art Hendy right alongside. When he finally had to get out of the throttle, the wheels bounced, and he grazed the guardrail, completely crushing the exhaust headers and doing some minor damage to the body. The fact that he had done truly an outstanding job of driving under the circumstances was of little solace to FDA's McCullough at the far end of the racetrack. He was just absolutely disgusted at having not won the earlier round. In round #2, the Scott Coletta machine we'll be seeing is brand new. In fact, it was late even arriving here, and they put it right into the show. Shows a lot of promise under the direction, of course, of longtime veteran Connie Coletta, Scott's dad. They qualified #8.
He had a first-round victory over Frank Kramberger, and he's looking for his second win of this year if he can advance to the finals in this Olds Cutlass. Hendy in the near lane in the Pontiac Trans Am. He's in the top 10 in Funny Car point standings. #8 spot, looking for his first win of the season. We saw what happened earlier when he eliminated Ed McCullough.
So you got the brand new shiny car of Scott Coletta, the battered and worn but very competitive car of Art Hendy from Southern California. Buster sends him on the way. Coletta goes up in smoke. Hendy gets close to the center line. Here comes Coletta back. Oh, Art Hendy in one of the most, interesting races of the day.
Nobody's going to be
Well, the second round of Funny Car action is continuing. I'm Steve Evans along with Gary Gerald and Big Daddy Don Garlitz, and you're looking at a tire-blazing John Force, and now a head-on shot of Mark Oswald's beautiful Ford Pro. I am so confused, Big Daddy. Mark Oswald has the lane choice. He just saw Scott Coletta have all kinds of traction problems, but he stays over there on the far side.
Well, Steve, you know, these crew chiefs really keep a close monitor on these tracks, and it's a good possibility that Leonard Hughes, the crew chief, has went out, looked at the track, and decided that the far lane is now the best.
Well, sometimes you can get in trouble watching those cars in front of you. They may have a completely different clutch setup. They may have overpowered the racetrack. John Force knows about clutch problems. He experienced those in round number 1, was lucky to squeak through. But his crew chief, Austin Coil, hopefully has remedied those problems. Anyone who was here yesterday in qualifying marvels at the fact that this man, Mark Oswald, is even out on the starting line. A lot of that credit has to go to his crew chief, Leonard Hughes. It's a story that we followed to its completion. There's quite a bit of controversy about the information-gathering devices, i.e. computers, on these cars. Some people feel, well, it takes the human element out of it. Well, Mark Oswald and Leonard Hughes and their crew, they're not using a computer at all today. Not because they don't want to. Yesterday, they had a big problem in qualifying. Mid-course, a spark plug blew completely out of the motor and through the body. The resulting fire coming out of that empty hole set the body on fire. Mark got it stopped, and he was fine. They have fitted the car with a brand new, identical body that they had in the trailer as a spare, so all's well there. The computer was the big casualty in the fire. It burned right up. So they're having to make decisions the old-fashioned way. Make horsepower. They got to earn their horsepower, let's put it that way, by reading the spark plugs, looking at their time slips, comparing the 60-foot and the 90-foot and the 8th-mile times. Mark says, you know it's right if it just shakes a little bit.
So a fascinating development relating to Mark Oswald, and now they'll find out if the old-fashioned way is going to be good enough to get the job done against a strong competitor in John Force, even though Force has struggled throughout much of this year.
Mark Oswald is running on adrenaline alone right now. His head finally hit the pillow at 5 a.m. this morning, completing that body swap.
Well, Oswald raised a few eyebrows when he selected the far lane. He's away with some tire smoke, but Force is sideways. Close battle, and Oswald gets the win. Both men battling for traction. Oswald prevails at 5 points. Now, the funny car competition has Kenny Bernstein going against Tom Hoover.
Now, a brand new supercharged motor has been installed in Kenny Bernstein's Buick Riata. But under these conditions, I really think any good sound motor could win this drag race. It's what's inside that bell housing that really counts. And the 4-time Winston champ Kenny Bernstein knows that his man, Dale Armstrong, and the crew that backs him up are as good as any with that clutch. In fact, Armstrong, after the engine explosion, personally did all of the clutch work. Tom Hoover from Minnesota may be in the driver's seat here over Kenny Bernstein. His father, George, certainly hopes to. Well over 80 years of age, he built all the motors for that car. Hoover has lane choice, and he's come back over to our side, Don.
Well, he figures that's a good side, and I like to comment on Bernstein. Even though he put a new motor in for this round, he's got the same clutch from round 1.
Absolutely. The lights are green, and Bernstein is gone. Kenny Bernstein, a little wiggle. Hoover smokes the tires. What a recovery for that team. Kenny Bernstein wins it over Tom Hoover with a